Shekhar sir has already introduced you the basics, that what is a disaster and hazard and vulnerability. These are the words which he has written on this whiteboard are the major, or we can say these are the things in which we directly, or you can say we totally work throughout these are the words. So on the first slide of my presentation, that is there are 8 words which are written, that is disaster, hazard, vulnerability, risk. On the other side, preparedness, mitigation, response and recovery. We one by one we will understand that what is the meaning and how they are very close to disaster management, and in which these are after when we completed our presentation today, we can realize that these are the only words we throughout, or we can say we are automatically working in the circle-like structure that is called DM cycle, which will be introduced later on. So we totally dynamically working on these words. So first word, as sir has mentioned, what is the basics difference between a hazard and disaster? He is introducing you that is a hazard and that is a disaster. So from anyone from your side who can explain, as sir has already discussed a small bit of this, the word hazard means. What is that hazard? From anyone from your side, please.
The intensity and the type of disaster.
Okay, intensity. Another one, please. Anyone from your side? As sir has mentioned that this hazard has Verma, there is some event that you are going to your office or a destination. You have some purpose. So hazard also has some purpose. It has a potential. What potential? That it has some capacity to destroy the things. That if I put this duster, this duster is fallen down to this, that it means that it has some capacity to destroy that this tile. So, like this is just for example case. If we talk about the whole at a large scale, that if this ceiling fan, or if this AC fall down, it has some capacity. When it fallen down on that in this place, might be chances that he might be get hurted or he might be get some injuries. So that is this something is it means that it has some capacity to destroy. But when this capacity, when this happen or this event happen and this fallen down into the just on the behind on the head of a cell, then it called as a disaster. I will give a small. So this is a hazard. Hazard is a potential damaging phenomena which has capacity to destroy the environment, life, loss, agriculture loss, property loss. But so on the first line of that, it is written, it mentioned that potential damaging phenomena. It has capacity to destroy the things. So anything that has a capacity might be maybe a different. Maybe this might have some capacity to destroy you already. If we are traveling from one place to another place, there we encounter with many hazards. Like if I gave an example of a cyclone, that IMD generate early warning. What is early warning? They are giving some information about that this kind of cyclone is formed in the Arabian Sea or a Bay of Bengal or the Indian Ocean. So you people should try to just go into the safest place, or we can evacuate people from one place to another, because if we have something. So it is that hazard has a capacity. So IMD generated early warning. What early warning? That this capacity cyclone is approaching to this coast. So you please evacuate the people. So they are giving they are just clear that this has a capacity, because they also mentioned the wind speed of this cyclone which is approaching toward the Arabian Sea to the Puri. Like in the case of cyclone Fani, which has occurred into May 2019, the IMD generated early warning very precisely, very concisely, that this cyclone is forming and it can hit the Puri coast. So they generally mention that what kind of a disaster it might be. So that is known as a hazard. But when we come to the disaster, as already sir mentioned, from this definition, this is a definition which is from Disaster Management Act. What Act say? There is a Disaster Management Act. We will briefly discuss on the another topic, that is institutional mechanism. But for that, in 2005, we in India, we enacted government and from the parliamentary situation, there is an act which is known as Disaster Management Act, and shortly we can say DM Act 2005. It is showing that a catastrophe, mishap, calamity or occurrence in the occurrence of area arising from natural or the human made. There are two types. Generally, there are two types of disaster: natural or the man-made. We all know that basic difference between the natural and the man-made. Can anyone suggest it, or can anyone tell me the two natural hazards in this system, the place where we are, or two man-made disaster? Can you please give me example of two man-made disaster or two natural disasters? From this campus only, as you are traveling from since morning, so you have encountered. So please tell me two natural or two human induced. Or have you seen any disaster in this room only? It means that have you seen any possibility of disaster in this room?
Collapse.
Collapse. What is that collapse?
Collapse of the building.
Okay. Which another?
Fire.
Fire. Or another? Natural? Huh? Road accident. Okay. So you basically understand what is the difference between the natural and the human-induced disasters. And so this is the definition which the Disaster Management Act says, that as catastrophe, mishap, calamity, occurrence in the occurrence arising from a natural or the man-made causes. Because if something has happened, it has some cause. What cause? As we discussed, the hazard has some potentials to destroy the property or to loss. Same in the case of when this hazard occurs, that converted into an event that is known as a disaster, and when it come out from the beyond the capacities of a human being, because we cannot control. Sometimes it has happened that sometimes we can manage the things. So we can if this AC is falling down, then if we put some efforts, then we can minimize the impact of that AC. But sometimes the situation comes when we are not in a position that we can save a life of people, or we are not in a position to how to control that. That comes into the category of a disaster. So this is a simple difference between it is an event and the hazard has a potential damaging capacity to destroy the things. Previously, I moved to one more slide. So this is a photographs in which we can easily understand that on the first picture, pictorial diagram, it is showing that there is a man who is standing near to a small hill. From the top, that stone, or we can say the round stone, is fallen down. So that stone has some capacity. If he fallen down on the man, then it may destroy life from the flood situations, or we can say heavy rainfall. Because rainfall are not in our control. Like that, in mitigation, what we do, that particular man has do, he generated, or he just made his home like that. This is the daily routine of the stones that has to fallen down from the hilly area. So I can save myself. That we do in a mitigation purpose. What we do in preparedness, we people are here. Why we are here? We are doing preparedness. We are here for the awareness campaigns. So like that, in that fourth picture, this particular man, this saying that someone from outside or someone from his friend or say, he said, please run, that stone is fallen down. So that is his preparedness. On the last stage, what happened? That he doesn't know how to save himself, he doesn't know, and it might be a chance that he doesn't have a time to save his life, and that particular stone has fallen down on that is become a disaster. So we started from a hazard and we ended from a disaster. This is a very simple pictorial diagram which we can easily understand after seeing the things, that how we can how we come to from hazard to a disaster. Any doubt you can ask me at the end, or you can ask questions related to this. So we have covered the disaster, we have covered. This is a picture from the Bhuj earthquake from 2001. This is a flood situation in Bihar. This is a cyclone. This is another type of disaster. We 26/11, we know that 2011 which we Mumbai Taj, there is a cesium bomb blast. This is a train accident. So these are the some major disasters. After that we come to there is a high power committee which come and they give a 31 type of a disasters. That who we cannot say that if this AC is fallen down, it is also a disaster. The committee has recommended there are 31 types of disaster. What are these? These are water and climate related disasters. These are the list which we can say flood and drainage management, cyclones, tornado, hurricanes, hailstorms, cloud bursts, heat waves, cold waves. So these are the disasters which are related to the water and climate related. Water and climate. So this is the list. Tsunamis we have seen in the 2004. It was very impactful and I think more than 10,000 people have been reported that in this 2004 tsunami. Another is geological related disaster. Means geo means earth related disaster that they maybe chances there might be a landslide because landslide is very common phenomena in the hilly areas from where these are very, we can say that the structures are very small. We in Hindi can say कि एकदम से फिसल जाना. It is called that when there is a loads of rainfall fallen down on particular area, there might be chances of a erosion. So erosion in the form of water, erosion in the form of mud, erosion in the form of with the small rocks like. So data related to the landslide, mud flow, earthquake. We all know that what is earthquake and how it is occur. Dam failure, dam burst, mine disasters. And another type of disaster is CBRN disaster. C means chemical, industrial, nuclear related disaster, in which chemical and industrial disaster we have seen that in Kerala also. Then when in country there is a lockdown was imposed in country. So we have seen in many factories there are chances of a blast, and we have seen that in a few industrial areas where chemical is used, they blasted because they have stored a chemical for a purpose of a 1 month or a 2 month, but chemical has its potential also. So they blasted. So these are the chemical related disasters. Nuclear disaster we have seen in the Japan in the World War. The USA Army has been given a bomb like structure bomb in the this in Japan, Hiroshima, Nagasaki. Where we have seen the impact of these nuclear disaster on the today's generation also. So nuclear disaster impact is very high. Another type of disaster is accidental related disaster, in which some incident can occur. Why? Because if we are going through this forest area and we just put out a matchstick, that is a small incident, but it can burn the whole forest. So this is an incident. And fire related disasters, there it is mentioned that forest fire, urban fire, mine flooding, oil spills, major building collapse, serial bomb blast. So there are numbers of disasters which is come in the categories of accident related. Because village fire, we know that somebody is smoking and forget to just shut down this cigarette and it thrown. Sometimes we have seen that there is a fire which is uncontrollable in the condition which emerge in the village. So this is the issue. Another issue is biological related disaster. These are the disasters which are related to biological, and we have encountered COVID-19. COVID-19 is a very serious category of a biological disaster. Cattle epidemics, food poisonings, pest attacks, and biological disasters like epidemics. These are come into the category of biological disasters. So vulnerability, as Sir has mentioned, Sir has already mentioned you what is a vulnerability. I will explain you. There are 4 types of vulnerability: physical vulnerability, social vulnerability, and physical vulnerability, social vulnerability, economic vulnerability, environment vulnerability. First we come to the physical vulnerability. Physical vulnerability is that which we can see by physical eyes. That if we are sitting here I am giving an example that if this foreign AC is fallen down, we can see by physically that this is a problem. This comes to physical vulnerability. Like if I give an example, as you are aware that Japan is a country which is very famous for earthquake. Because in Japan we encounter daily we feel earthquake in that country. So Japan is very commonly using, and they are made their houses in a wooden structures. But we are also aware that wooden structures are more prone to the fire incident. So this we can see from physically why our naked eyes is that this is a problem. So in this case, for example, I have put that wooden homes are less likely to collapse. Wooden houses, those houses are very safest if in case of a disaster, but they are more prone in case of a we can say fire. Because if the houses are in a pattern, if these houses catch fire, then the entire row, or we can say the entire column can be destroyed due to this fire. So this is a physical vulnerability. If we come to the social vulnerability, what is social vulnerability? We people in the society live with the social groups, like we are the younger generation, some are older people, some are pregnant women, some are working people. So that is a socialized culture of our society. But who are more vulnerable in the disaster? Can anybody say who is more vulnerable in the disaster? Like if I give an example that suppose we are sitting in this particular room, who is more vulnerable? And if there is chances of a flood, who is more vulnerable? Who? Disabled, okay. Aged wise. Children, okay. You all are right. This is a physical vulnerability. In case of physical vulnerability, the people, those who are as mental differently able people are more vulnerable. Older people are more vulnerable, who are senior citizens and they cannot run in a disaster. Pregnant women are more vulnerable. So these come into the category of a social vulnerability. We have to take care of pregnant women, differently able people, and the older people in case of emergency. Like if we are in a position that we can save a life of our people, then we should try. But we should make that if we can help the people when we feel that I can save myself only. If I cannot save myself and I just go through, I can save a people or the older people or a pregnant people. Please don't do that practice. You should work or you should help the people when you feel that I can save and I can save myself and along with those whom I am helping. Actually. Economic vulnerability. Economic is we can understand that what is economy. Economy means it is related to the financially. That if I am rich, I can afford something. But if I'm not rich, I am a poor, I cannot afford. Like that in case of a disaster, if I am a very poor man, I cannot afford anything. So I am more vulnerable to a disaster. Why? Because if we see that in a case of a disaster, we can take an example, if we are living in if we take that we are living in a society, or we can say like in a city, there might be a chances that flood has occurred and IMD generated in the morning and people, this administration is also working on that flood is occurring. So who is more vulnerable? They are looking after the people who are living on the streets. Why? Because they doesn't have any pakka houses, they doesn't have any facilities. If we all are working and we can afford pakka houses, then we feel that in case of a flood or in case of a tsunami or any disaster, we are more safe than the people, those who are living on the streets. Understandable? Like for that economic vulnerability, poor families may live in the scattered settlement because they cannot afford live in a safer houses or expensive houses. Like if we take example, in today's time, if we are making a building, if we are making our home, or if we are making our houses or a base society, all the building donation code, like we have to, we just go to the architecture, please make our architecture structure, like if we are making, So we can prevent ourselves for in case of a disaster like earthquake, in case of a fire. So the PWD or the concerned department will give a proper chart or proper mechanism that you should make your houses in these lines, the building code, and if our society is following the earthquake zone, which zone of earthquake? There are 4 or 5 zones of earthquake, like zone 4, zone 5, zone 4, zone 3, zone 2, zone 1. So zone 5 is more vulnerable to earthquake as compared to the zone 1. So we also have to look at what are the possibilities of disaster in our localities. Then we should make our houses. And what another fourth vulnerability is environmental vulnerability. As we are very cruel about the forest, we are cutting down the forest. We are doing lots of deforestation activities on a daily concerns. So we should stop them because we are also impacting the environment also. But if our environment is not good, then it creates problem like we face a soil erosion problem, we face a forest because this environmental related issues are very concerning in today's time also. Seeing that how many people are being disturbed or how many people are being in the trap of particular disasters, so then we can save them and we can make a mitigation measure or we can make some strategies to save them. So it is mandatory that we should focus that expected life of how much impact or how much risk is there in a disaster if we are sitting there. Not only there, but where we are working also. Capacity building. After that, we have and this discussed hazard, vulnerability, and disaster. There is another word that is capacity building. What is capacity building? Capacity building is that how much we are aware or how much we are trained. Like that, if we are sitting in a room and we are approximately 70 or 80 people, we have some purpose for this training program. But after completing a 5-day or 6-day training program, we are in a position that we can, the administration can utilize us as a resource. That in case of a disaster, what are the resources like ambulance is a kind of ambulance is also a resource, a human. Because if I am trained in any disaster perspective, then I am also a resource to the community or resource to the administration. So it is our responsibility that I have some people who are trained, so I can give their references to the administration that these people have been trained in the disaster management. You can utilize. So you are also your capacity to a district, your capacity to a state, because you are trained enough to save the life of our people. So that is called identification, exacting resources and resources to acquire. We have to identify what are the resources we have. Because if we are sitting in this room and if fire occurred in that state and in this corner, what had happened? We should make arrangement for the fire brigade. We should make arrangement for a fire extinguisher. So these are the resources, and those who are not present, we should make a kind of thing. We should make an inventory that we should require these resources also. Organized training program for the people. How we make the people aware, how we make people comfortable with a disaster management, we should organize training program for effective management of disasters. So this is a capacity. What is disaster management? Sir has already mentioned you that we work for the humanitarian aspect. So for a definition purpose, this is disaster management can be defined as the organization and a management of resources, responsibility for dealing the humanitarian aspect of emergencies, in particularly preparedness, response, recovery to lessen the impact. That simply means we are here for a purpose. What is the purpose? That we should understand what is the basics of disaster management and how we can save and how we can motivate others and how we can train the other people. That is our main purpose. But our main purpose is that we should work for the humanitarian purpose. Humanitarian means we should save the life, because in a disaster management, what is more important, that is saving the life of our people. It is a main purpose of disaster management. And disaster management aim, what is the aim? to reduce, which is written in the second para of this thing. Disaster management aim is to reduce or to avoid the potential losses from hazard. From hazard means any type of hazard, maybe a cyclone, maybe of a fire, maybe of a fall down of ceiling, this terrace, maybe of a AC fall down. It might be a different perspective, it might be a different position, it may be a different at different stages. But aim is to lessen the impact from the hazard and promote, assure, promote and proper assistance to the victim. Because if we see that in case of if a disaster occurred and we all are into the same platform that we have encountered and we are not in a position we should go outside or we don't have adequate food facilities with them. So the aim of this disaster management is to provide a proper assistance. Assistance means medical aid, food, for milk products to the small children which are below the age of 5 years, and sanitation things. So this is the major assistance which should be provided at a time of a disaster to the people. And also what we do achieve rapid and effective recovery, because not disaster management is not for the purpose of our this preparedness and response. We should come from where we have started before disaster to the after disaster. We should maintain a same thing. For that we should do effective response and effective recovery. So this is the disaster management. What is the main aim? Main aim is to avoid or to lessen the impact of a hazard which are coming. So this is the disaster management cycle. As I already told you on the first slide, there are 4 words which are written on the right side: preparedness, mitigation, response and recovery. We will understand from this diagram. This is there are 3 stages in the disaster management: post disaster, pre-disaster, post disaster, or the during disaster. What we do in the pre-disaster, if we are talking, we are sitting in this room, what we are doing, we are doing something to understand what is disaster, to understand the terminologies, to understand the basics of disaster, for dealing into the maybe of any disaster. So we are doing in a pre-disaster, what we doing risk assessment. We should analyze in that if we are sitting in this room, what are the possibilities of risk, what are the possibilities of vulnerabilities in this particular room. So we are doing these things: mitigation, prevention, preparedness. We are doing into the bracket of pre-disaster. But when this disaster occurs, on the second column, response, what we do saving people, we provide assistance, we provide damage, we provide assessing the damage, we do ongoing assistance, we provide restoration and services to the people. So this is the during disaster. And what we do in the post-disaster? We do construction, we do reconstruction, we do rehabilitations of our people, we provide some compensation to make their houses which are affected by a disaster. We do ongoing development activities, but we should also concern that we should make arrangements like in a position that they will not impact it in the future. So those online projects which are going on, we should introduce disaster management things to these things. And risk assessment and mitigation we throughoutly work on. And these are the 3 major stages of our disaster management: pre, during and post disaster. What we do in during, we do search and rescue operations, early warning, we do provide assistance to the people, those who are affected, like medical aid, food, supplies, sanitation things, and we also provide them medical aid, ambulances, doctor, paramedical things. So these come to the categories of during a disaster. So these are the 3 stages of a disaster management. We have already discussed these things and already sir has also mentioned, but if we go through what we do these are the disaster management cycle, it will work from like this thing. So what we do in mitigation, we do minimize the effect of a disaster. The work which we do for the minimizing the disaster, For example, as I already told you, if we are making a building, we should remember and we should think that we should make our houses in the building zones, like that whether our houses, whether our property is falling down to a zone of any type of earthquake. Because if we fall in the zone of a 5 or 6, if we fall in the zone of 4 or 5, and we make our houses not up to mark, then might be a chances that it will be destroyed or it may be destructed during an earthquake. So we should focusly and we should analyze the vulnerability. What are the possible vulnerabilities if we are working in a society or if we are working in our offices? So we should learn and we should focusly seeing that what are the vulnerabilities near me or near our surroundings. What we do in preparedness, we do planning how to respond to a disaster, in which we make disaster management plans for this as per the guidelines of a national authority, NDMA. We have to make a disaster management plan for every building, for every institution, for every college, every government offices, every department. So we should make them, and we should also train and we should provide a mock drills to our people. What we do in response is I already told you, this response comes into the category of a during disaster, because when disaster occurs, we do work for the response activities like efforts to minimize the hazard created by a disaster. For example, we perform search and rescue operation. What is search and rescue operations? Can anyone tell me? What is search and rescue? Search and rescue is a simple technique in which we work into during a disaster stages. We will search the people, those who are not in a contact, not only for the human being, but we also search for the animals also, the people who are surroundings our near and dear. We do search during disaster, like in the Bhuj earthquake in 2001. Severe search and rescue operations were being governed by the administrations, NDRF, and many different forces. And emergency relief, we provide the emergency relief into the response. Recovery means we are backing from the disaster state to a normal stages, like that we make a temporary houses to the people, because those who lost their houses in a disaster like flood or earthquake or any disaster might be, so they need some temporary houses, they need some temporary arrangement for their livelihood. So we provide temporary housing, grants and medical care to people in the recovery stage. This is after this completion of a basics of disaster management, we come to the vulnerability profile of India. As we know that India is a very vital and very vast country, and it has a very different geographical conditions. So different geographical conditions have a different disasters. Like if we talk about that 58.6% of a landmarks is prone to a earthquake disaster, moderate to a very high. As I already mentioned, that earthquake in the fall into categories of a zone 5. Zone 5, zone 4, zone 3, zone 2 and zone 1. Zone 1 is very rare chances of earthquake, but zone 5 and 4 are more vulnerable to this earthquake categories. Like in zone 5, we fall in our country, the northeastern part of country, foreign parts of Himalayan regions, ranges, parts of Himachal Pradesh, parts of Uttarakhand, some parts of Gujarat, Bhuj earthquake is followed down in the categories of a zone 5. So 58.6% of the landmarks is prone to a moderate to a very high intensity, and approximately 40 million hectares means 12% of total landmarks of a country is prone to a floods and river erosions. And this 5,700 kilometer out of 7,516 kilometer long coastline is very prone to cyclone disasters, cyclone and tsunami. We have seen Kerala is also Kerala also seen the tsunami earthquake in the 2004. So tsunami is also very phenomena which also have a very largely impact on the society, and at that point of time approximately 10 to 12,000 people lost their lives. So this is a major disaster, and If we talk about 68% of cultivable area is drought prone. Drought is a stage where we face a lack of water problem or scarcity of water problem. So these are the areas which are prone to different disasters, and more India is also vulnerable to a chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear disasters. In India, we also face this COVID-19. Not only in India, but throughout the world, we have faced this biological disaster as we known as COVID-19. COVID-19 is emerges as the largest biological disaster up to till today. So this is a map which is showing the coastline of India, which is prone to tsunamis and the cyclones. This is the area which is showing the brownish color map, which is showing the land of 40 million of hectares, 12% of landmass is prone to the flood disasters. This is a map which is showing the earthquake. That more reddish area, which is showing darkest side of this right side of mine, which cover the seven sisters of our northeast states of a country. These are very prone to an earthquake. Parts of Gujarat is also prone to this earthquake. So this is a map showing the different disasters, different stages or different areas which are very prone to the earthquake disaster. So this is a basic of disaster management which I have covered.